All right. Welcome back. This is take two, dude. I tried take one and it didn't hit. So I did some holotropic breathing, which by the way, dude, I'm definitely gonna have to do an episode on that shit because I don't know how that works, dude. It's it's fucking crazy. It's you literally just like breathe a certain way and you have like an out of body experience. It's fucking crazy. Maybe it's slowly like giving me schizophrenia or giving me brain damage or something, but it is so fucking it's definitely good, dude. I definitely fuck with it. More than like meditation, dude. Meditation is just this is like meditation on steroids. Like you truly can't like think or like overthink too much during all this shit. Which is that's not even what was happening. I just wasn't like the synapses in my brain weren't firing properly and I couldn't talk. That's what happened during take one, dude. But take two, we are on it, dude. And we are live. Today's episode, I am recording this on a Tuesday. I don't know if I said that, dude. Like I said, this shit fucks up fucks your brain up, dude. So I don't really know if I already said that, but yeah. Cuz you know what I mean? It's Thanksgiving break. I got to drive like 18 hours in 5 days. It's too much, dude. And so I'm recording this in advance. And I recorded the mini episode that's coming out or that has already come out, I guess. I also recorded that in advance cuz goddamn in advance. Yeah. Alright, like I said, that shit fucks up your brain. But today's episode is the Thanksgiving special. Speaking of Thanksgiving, it is coming out 3 days after Thanksgiving, dude, but who cares? It's still that time of year. And it's a fall wintry type of thing. But yeah, today's episode, by the title, dude, we're talking about Indians of the Northeast. We're going to talk generally about like the overall culture of that area, and then we're going to talk about two tribes, in specific tribes, nations. I'm gonna use those interchangeably. When I say clan, I mean a certain thing, but nation equals tribe. That's all that matters for that section. I don't know why I kept going on, but for the Northeast, you might be thinking of like New England and New York and like maybe like parts of Canada. That is kind of what we're talking about, but you know, split the U.S., the continental U.S. in half, um, vertically, and then do it horizontally. We're talking the top right quadrant. So we are talking New England and New York, but we also have like parts of like Maryland, Virginia, Delaware, um, Western Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Illinois. You know what I mean? Parts of Virginia, North Carolina, West Virginia, that type of area. You know what I mean? It's hard to describe. I do have a picture of it uh, that'll be on the notes on the Instagram. But yeah, that's the best I can give it. A verbal description. And we're not going to be talking about any of those bullshit, First Nations Canada tribes. All right, dude. We're talking about the ones that got wiped out by the fucking Dutch and English settlers and each other. We're going to talk a little bit about that too. But you know, the beef wasn't too crazy between the tribes. But you know what I mean. Once the fucking Englanders showed up, English, you know what I mean, gave them all those insane diseases, smallpox, dude. Imagine one day you just start like extra shit starts growing on your skin. These dudes aren't used to that. You know what I mean? They're just chilling, playing fucking lacrosse, which we will talk about because this episode was going to end on a bitter note, but I was like, dude, we got to talk about something else. We're talking about lacrosse at the very end of this episode. But yeah, it's going to be a long one, so I think I might as well dive in right now. You know what I mean? It's not going to be the best episode, dude. I'm kind of tired right now. I'm kind of running on fumes. Like I said, my brain is barely working, but um, yeah, I'm going to try to get it. You know what I mean? So the the overall culture can kind of be broken down into subgroups based on what family the language of that group is from. And so our three groups are Algonquin, Iroquoian, or Siouan. Siouan? Siouan, something like that. Siouan. We're not going to be talking about that too much, so it doesn't really matter how how I pronounce it. But Algonquin groups pretty much dominated this region and a lot of other regions across the United States and parts of Canada and stuff. Um, and there's like pockets of it elsewhere, but this is a language group, not a specific language. And there's a tribe called the Algonquin. Um, but fuck it, we're talking about the family, the language family here, and we're not going to talk about that tribe. But yeah, they basically dominated the entire Northeast, besides like parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, the area around Ontario and Lake Erie, dude. The two worst lakes. You know what I mean? You got Buffalo on there. Buffalo is the I don't even know. It's the New York City of the great of Lake Ontario, or whatever it's called, Ontario, however the fuck you say it. But yeah, and also parts of like Virginia and North Carolina, and especially by the time like colonists were starting to move inwards, you know what I mean, westwards across the this region, that's when they really, at that time, they really dominated this shit. But some big names from that tribe include the Massachusetts. I wonder where they could be from. The Mohican. We obviously all know that dude. Daniel Day Lewis is fucking fine ass running around the woods, breathing heavily in girls' faces. You know what I mean? Holding them while they quiver, type shit. You know what I mean? Kissing, getting really close to kissing them and then not. You know, pulling away, being like, I can't. We all know. The Wampanoag, the Montauk, which is like, it's an area in New York, if you know. We got the Delaware, we got the Kickapoo. Chief Kick a bitch from the Slapaho tribe or whatever that meme is. We got the Miami, dude. The Shawnee and the Illinois. All the big names, all the classics, you know what I mean? Besides like some tribes out west and maybe like the Cherokee, you know what I mean? These are the biggest names. Illinois, everyone knows Illinois. Even if you don't know, it's a tribe. But yeah, so that's the big names from the Algonquin group, and then yeah, I guess we'll get to the Iroquois, and you might have heard of the Iroquois Confederacy. Yeah, let's see. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. Um, I'll go into I'll go in depth onto it, but basically, all you need to know for now is it's just a few tribes, I think six, that all kind of have like a diplomatic relationship. You know what I mean? It's not like a full on cohesive country, but it's, you know what I mean? They fuck with each other heavy. You know what I mean? That's gang. That's that's how I would describe it for the average person and myself to be able to understand it. Quite frankly, that's how I interpret it. Um, but yeah, these guys control the areas around Lake Ontario and Lake Erie, with other small settlements in like coastal hills, I think it said, but not really in the region we're talking about too much, so it doesn't really matter. But the main, and that's where the Iroquois Confederacy was, or Iroquois League, whatever you want to call it, was around Lake Ontario and Lake Erie. I don't know why I want to say Ontario. I think it sounds more like northern if you say Ontario. Yeah, you been up to Lake Ontario? No, that was Philly, but I mean, kind of the same shit. Um, but yeah, that's where these dudes were chilling. And then we got most famous for the Iroquois Confederacy, which included the Mohawk. So I'd say that's probably, even if you don't know the tribe, you definitely know the name Mohawk. So that's kind of the group we're talking about there. Most Siouan, I'm saying Siouan because you'll figure out real quick. Groups moved west and are considered to be part of the Plains Indian culture, even though their language group is part of this Eastern thing. And they moved west due to like colonists in like the fifth or 16th and 17th century. Goddamn, but dude, it's like these dudes. The second they saw the colonists, they were fucking out of there. It's like the 16th century is like when like the first white people got there, and they weren't even close to the Siouan groups, and maybe they were a little close, but not really. And the Sioux, dude, immediately dipped. Went to the fucking plains. We're like, what are you guys doing over here? All right, we're gonna kill a few of you, but the rest of you can join. That's basically what they did. Um, so yeah, if you don't know, the Sioux are kind of like Dakota area, parts of like western Minnesota, and then into like eastern Montana, the non-mountainous parts of Montana, and that's where they were chilling. Um, but a few groups did say the most famous is the Winnebago, which is a tribe. It's not just a type of RV that fat white people live in, dude. Um, but they still reside in the Northeast. But the biggest name is obviously the Sioux. You know what I mean? And I don't know exactly how the Sioux works because it's like you got the Lakota Sioux, the Dakota, the Yon. It starts with a fucking Y. Look, I'm just saying the Sioux as a whole, like that whole group of people, culture group, language group, whatever. They moved west, mixed shit up a little bit, dude. They were like the black dude in a horror movie. They were like, "What the fuck is that?" And then they didn't even know it was a threat yet. They were just like, "What the fuck is that?" And they took off, dude. You know what I mean? So that's what they were doing. Fucking worked out decently well for them. You know what I mean? Not for the people that they probably had to kill once they got there. Um, but you know what I mean? It's not as bad as it could have been. Similarities between the three groups. and this is why they're generally considered to be part of the same culture group. I mean, it's really the two groups. It's mainly the Iroquois and the Algonquin, but I'm including the Siouan group in there because they were once part of this group, even though they're not anymore, and they haven't been for a few hundred years. But uh, the generally agreed upon like currency between these groups is wampum beads, which are made from quahog. Shout out Family Guy, dude. I didn't know Family Guy was dropping references like that, but a quahog is a type of clam, dude. And there is a Family Guy episode. I've been watching Family Guy clips a lot lately. I don't know about you guys. I've been on that grind. You know what I mean? It's November. My brain is already most of the way dead. I just need some fucking, you know what I mean, Stewie looking like Chris Hemsworth. That's what Brian going on a bad mushroom trip. You know what I mean? Peter farting in Meg's face. That's what I need right now. But yeah, wampum beads. You probably heard of it. Uh, yeah, they were beads made from clamshells, basically, which were used in trading and also diplomacy. So they would make these things called wampum belts, which were kind of like used as like a treaty between groups. You know what I mean? It's like you'd have the wampum belt and you'd like keep it as a reminder of your agreement and of like all the things, all like the bad things that happened to make you that made you had okay, that made you come to this like agreement. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what they represent. And they're like these cool like geometric patterns. It's not what you'd expect. You know what I mean? But they're pretty sick. And they're not like you think of like native art and you think of like pictures of like buffalo and horses and all that shit. No, dude, these are just like cool designs on a belt. Um, and actually, one was given to William Penn, who was like the first governor of Pennsylvania. Um, and yeah, people mostly know the Iroquois for doing that, but they all fucked with the wampum, apparently. Wampum is a very, very native set. You don't even have to do the accent when you say that word, and you sound fucking native, dude. Wampum. But they typically lived in wigwams or longhouses, a communal living arrangement um, comp- comprised of a single room that might have been like multiple levels. And they had like also like multiple fireplaces and stuff. And they had like each group had their own tradition surrounding it. Like two families would share a fireplace, or everyone would share one fireplace. You know what I mean? Shit like that. And that goes for everything I'm saying throughout this list. But uh, yeah, I guess I'll just make that caveat right there. And it was sometimes like one or two levels. You know what I mean? And the second level was usually just like a sleeping area. You know what I mean? They weren't making like skyscrapers. They weren't chilling in teepees either. And some people lived in like brush huts, lean-tos, but longhouses were like the if you lived in a big village, that's where you lived. And they did have a few big towns, villages, cities, whatever you want to call it. Um, the biggest one ever, I think, was around 20,000 people, which but that wasn't kind of in the area you're thinking of. That was in like Ohio, or that you might be thinking of. I don't know, dude. Like I said, I'm barely thinking right now, so I can't imagine what anyone else is thinking, let alone what I'm thinking. But yeah, they were chilling in the longhouses. All the tribes participated in agriculture, mostly with the Three Sisters, which, if you don't know, this is like I guess for anyone not in America, dude, because everyone in America has fucking seen this illustration 1,000 times from like first to third grade, and then you don't hear about it again, really. You know what I mean? But it was basically corn in the middle, or I guess we'll start with corn. So the corn provides a thing for the beans to grow up, and then they plant squash, which like protects the ground around the corn. And then there's like other like scientific like they take different nutrients out of the soil and put different nutrients back in, but I'm not going to get into detail on that. They just grow really well together. And apparently, all these things squash, beans, and corn all originated from Mesoamerica, which is like Mexico, basically, which is, I mean, the boys got it up there somehow. Um, but yeah, and that's, and they all like hunted and fished as well, where they could. Um, the tribes tended to live close to their fields where the men planted and harvested and women processed the crops. And these crops did comprise most of their diet. About like 70% is like the average across it. Um, and most tribes were split into subgroups called clans. These clans were often named after animals which the groups had some like spiritual connection to. So I'm Delaware, and like the clans, there used to be 30, but the three that are still there are like, what is it? It's like turkey, wolf, turtle are the three that are still there. Yeah. Uh, and those are part of like the creation story. So if you've ever heard of like Turtle Island, like people refer to America as that, that comes from like Delaware and other like Algonquian uh creation stories. And like wolves became people. I don't know where the fucking turkeys are involved in that. I don't know who the women turkeys became the women. I don't know, dude. Um, but yeah. So they had like some kind of spiritual connection to it. Uh, and then they had like, so the way you think about it, or the way I think about it, is like it's basically like a last name. Like they call it clans and subclans and all that. It's basically just a way to like keep track of who's who. You know what I mean? Make sure you know what I mean. Someone can't lie about their identity, or you accidentally fuck your cousin or whatever. That's kind of why they set these groups up. Um, Also, yeah, just know who's who. That's basically what it is. Um, but yeah. Algonquian groups had a religion centered around Manitou, or an omnipresent life force, which is often depicted as the Great Spirit. Which, if you've probably heard someone say that before while making a joke, or just, you know what I mean. Some people call God the Great Spirit. It's like when people call God like the Big Kahuna or whatever. You know what I mean? It's a very like white people who wear swim shoes type of thing, or not swim shoes. What are those things called? Like you guys know what I'm talking about. Like those hiking or those sandals that are made out of like hiking shoe material. You guys know what I mean? I feel like those type of white people definitely call it the Great Spirit. I call him God because that's his name, even though I'm like the only like hardcore Catholic that doesn't believe in God. Um, but yeah, and so that's kind of like the similarities between all the groups. And the Iroquois do kind of have the same type of religion. Um, but yeah, so and Manitou isn't exactly God. He kind of, it's tough, and it's obviously different with all groups. In some groups, it is like God. You know what I mean? The creator of everything. In others, it's more like just the energy that everything has. I don't know. It's it could be a whole episode. Everything I've said so far could probably be a whole episode, and it's probably not the most well explained, but especially the wampum, dude. That I kind of just pulled that directly out of my ass, dude. You know what I mean? That was just a big fat pulled out, but you know what I mean. I think I got it right. I got it close enough to right. You know what I mean? No one's making wampum belts anymore. Um, but yeah. And I guess we'll just get into our tribes. We're talking about two tribes, and then we're going to talk about lacrosse afterwards. But the first tribe we're talking about is the Seneca. And you might know, like, I think he's a Greek philosopher named Seneca. We're not talking about that guy. All right, we're talking about this tribe. We'll talk about where the name comes from later. But it's an Iroquois tribe that is part of the Iroquois Confederacy. And then I wrote this down phonetically so that I didn't mispronounce it, or like not even mispronounce it. If I mispronounced it, that would be fine. Just like struggling to say it, I feel like is so much worse than mispronouncing it. You know what I mean? Because I like have to pause in it. You know what I mean? The pausing is a throwback. You know what I mean? God damn, I said you know what I mean a lot. That's how you know my brain's tired. I'm just saying you know what I mean so I can have like a second to think. Um, but yeah, I just like didn't want to struggle to pronounce it. But it's their name for it is the Haudenosaunee. Haudenosaunee, something like that. That was the Iroquoian name for the Iroquois League. Um, and the Iroquois Confederacy was a group of allied tribes or nations formed in the 15th century, thereabout. You know what I mean? Iroquois, like the language group and like the culture group, existed for a long, long time before that. But this is when the Iroquois Confederacy was formed, and it was formed to prevent basically like infighting caused by murder. And we're going to talk about this a little later. But basically, that's how like most of the beef between tribes, especially in this area, was caused. Like one dude would have beef with one other dude, he'd kill him, and then that would cause like seasonal fighting. You know what I mean? And so this was the Iroquois Confederacy was created to prevent that. And it was originally 5 tribes, but it became 6. But by the time it became 6, you know what I mean? It was starting to fall apart. It was like I don't know. It's like when Kevin Garnett came back to the Timberwolves. I was like, damn, dude, it's not it. It's already falling apart. This isn't gonna help it anymore. Um, but yeah, that's basically what the Iroquois League is. Um, and then Seneca, we're gonna talk about where that name comes from. It's an anglicized version, which if you don't know, it's like they'll change a word to make it easier for people in English to say and spell and like use and all that stuff. So it's an anglicized version of a Dutch word that was translated from an Algonquian language, which just refers to Iroquois people as a whole. So it's basically not even fucking close to what the Seneca call themselves. I think I have it. I do have it down here, and I again spelled this phonetically. The Seneca referred to themselves as the Onondaga, Onondaga, or Great Hill people. Which I mean, fucking poor fools. They didn't know what a Great Hill is, dude. They were in Western New York. I'm pretty sure that's like as depressing as Western Minnesota. It's probably not as bad, dude. Out here, there's literally nothing. It's fucking insane. The Sioux must have been scared shitless to leave fucking North Carolina to come here, even though they were in the Appalachians still. That's better than it is here. Doesn't get as cold. Yeah, it's just they must have been scared out of their goddamn minds, dude. Just saw that white skin and dipped, which I mean, fair enough. Good call by them because the boys came in and started fucking shit up. You know what I mean? If you've listened to any of the episodes about Africa and South Africa and stuff, I guess, or Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, and Lesotho. Uh, they didn't fuck it up too much there, but I mean, we could. There's some other cases in Africa. I mean, the people know. Where the boys got a little rowdy. They said, "Oh, you wanna come fight us? Oh, you wanna take over Spain for 700 years? Well, we're gonna destroy your entire continent for the next 1,000." So that's what the boys were doing. I don't know. Ain't ain't much else to say. But they were also referred to as the keepers of the Western Door due to their being the westernmost tribe in the Iroquois Confederacy. So they were right up on Lake Ontario and Lake Erie. There are 8 Seneca clans: bear, wolf, turtle, and beaver, which those 4 are the animal clans. And then we have the deer, hawk, Notua, the snipe, and the heron, which are the bird clans. Which I mean, what's deer doing in there? You know what I mean? It's like that meme of the dude dressed in the Fortnite skin in like the war or whatever. It's like the deer is part of the bird group. Um, but yeah. And so those are the 2, and then there's like 1,000 fucking subclans. At that point, dude, we're just talking last names. You know what I mean? I think that's an accurate description. Um, but and these clans are decided like matrilineally, which you have like the same last name as your father. Um, if you're listening to this, and if you don't, stop listening to this. I don't want any low class or fucking hippies listening to this now. Um, but yeah, and they have like the last name essentially of their mother. Yeah, your clan and your place in it is based on your mother. Uh, and even like I think if you're a dude, or maybe if you're a chick and you marry a dude, the dude joins that clan. I think is what that means. Uh, and it also has something to do with like passing down family heirlooms and like area that you control or like area that you plant on, area that you can hunt, shit like that. Um, and yeah, the Europeans were not a big fan of this, as we'll talk about a little bit later. Um, but in the 1600s, the French and the Huron, which I think no, the Huron didn't end up joining it, but anyway, these two, the French and the Huron, which is a tribe, attacked the Iroquois, causing a war with the Iroquois eventually won. This war was more like a series of skirmishes called Morning Wars. So, like I was saying, how the Iroquois Confederacy was prevented or was created to prevent wars that were caused by murder, or like skirmishes that were caused by murder. Those were called Morning Wars. You know what I mean? It was like one dude died, and then you had to get the get back. Is basically what we're dealing with here. Um, but yeah, I don't remember what it was called, this war, but they kind of ended up winning it, and it's like, dude, that just shows how pussy the French is. Like the Iroquois were pretty decimated at this point. It wasn't super bad, but they got fucked up by the smallpox and the polio, all that shit, all those crazy fucking European diseases, and they still, dude, the French are so pussy. The French had guns too, and they couldn't take them out. Um, but yeah, that's what that was. And then the Seneca and other Iroquois nations often played an important role in diplomacy between both tribal groups and European colonists, often using wampum belts. So yeah, the boys were giving out wampum left and right, like, "Hey, dude, chill out. Like, we just figured this shit out. We just created peace. We just could everybody just chill out so we can keep it." That's how they were operating at this point. And today there are three federally recognized Seneca tribes, two in New York and one in Oklahoma, and then there's some Seneca in Ontario, Canada, and they're part of like I don't know how the fucking Canadian bullshit works, dude. They just tried to copy us and made everything so much worse. It's crazy how poorly executed everything in Canada is. Like literally that's kind of the rest of the world at this point. God, America's so much better than everyone else. But yeah, and what the boys are doing right now, the boys got casinos. You know what I mean? Hey, what else can you ask for? You could have got taken out. A lot of these northeastern tribes, I mean, they got took the fuck out. As we'll talk about with our next group, yeah, they still exist, but boy, did they take some heavy losses. Um, yeah, so that was the Seneca. Damn, we're only at 26 minutes. Fuck it, dude. Even if this episode's shorter, you you pieces of shit better be grateful, because goddamn, dude, I need to stop drinking caffeine. It doesn't do anything for me. It's crazy, and I keep doing it. Is that what addiction is? I might be addicted. Um, but yeah, that's the Seneca. We're done with them. Iroquoian group. We're moving on to the Wampanoag, which you might have heard of. This is the group that was at the first Thanksgiving, and I was gonna go over the story, or I was gonna do a bigger section on it, but the story is kind of like it wasn't even like a planned thing. Like apparently there was like some Wampanoag, and the Wampanoag had helped these Puritans survive, like the Pilgrims survive the winter. Um, and they were just out hunting one day, and they pulled up, and they had like some extra deer or whatever, and the Puritans or the Pilgrims had just like harvested their crops or whatever, and so they're like, "Yo, let's have a fucking feast." The boys basically just had a little 3-day bender before they went back home to the wives. That's what the first Thanksgiving was. So next time your bitch wife comes down telling you, "Oh, you need to sit with your family at Thanksgiving, you can't watch football," tell her this story. All right, the boys were out hunting, pulled up, chilled for a few days with the Puritans. You should say, "Bitch, you're lucky I'm still here. You're lucky I'm not spending days away from you." All right, because that would be a true traditional celebration of Thanksgiving. Um, but yeah, that is what the boys were doing. The Wampanoag are an Algonquian group from eastern Massachusetts and northern Rhode Island. So I mean these guys, like I said, eastern Massachusetts, about like the eastern half, and they go out all the way onto that little hook out there. You know what I mean? Cape Cod, Nantucket. They're chilling out there. Martha's Vineyard, um, and northern Rhode Island. Which I mean, even if I gave the most in-depth description ever of where it was, no one knows where Rhode Island is, dude. Everyone's just like, "Oh, Rhode Island, Family Guy," which is the correct response. Because even these tribes are more irrelevant than Family Guy. What has Rhode Island? That dude from It's Always Sunny is from Rhode Island. But besides that, I mean, not a whole lot coming out of there. And look, I'm from Kansas, so I can't even talk too much shit. But still, I mean, at least Kansas is Old West. What are these, pilgrims? Pilgrims are like the gay version of cowboys. They were farming like sheep, and not even in like a cool Jesus way, in like a lame ass way. You know what I mean? They had like donkeys and mules and shit. Gay as hell, dude. Eating eels? Fucking, I cannot respect a group of people that eats eels. That's why I hate the British, New Zealanders, all of them. If you eat eels, the Japanese, I'm 90% sure that's why we dropped the nuke, dude. We saw some Japanese dude slurp down an eel, and we were like, fuck that shit. Whole country out of there, all right? Eat ramen, all right? Sushi, okay, we'll let you eat the raw fish. That better not be a fucking raw eel you're eating, though. That's why we dropped the nukes. So, there's one episode. Tick, done. Um, but yeah, and they spoke a language known as Massachusetts, which is Yeah, it's kind of weird because there's also a tribe called the Massachusetts, but we also got the whole thing was fucked up, dude. You know what I mean? We got like people from France, England, and the Netherlands all trying to translate, three different language groups, like 80 different individual languages. So I'm sure that's how that shit got fucked up. But originally, the Wampanoag lived a semi-nomadic lifestyle based around growing and hunting. Um, and yeah, they kind of like followed the patterns. They would move based on where, and they'd like come and go from the same places. So they'd like build like a few longhouses. They'd build like one near one field, one near another field, and they'd like kind of go back and forth throughout the year, or not back and forth, but they'd go from one to the other. That's the exact same thing as back and forth. It wasn't like a constant thing. It was like, okay, we're done with this field. We're done growing on it. We harvested on to the next field. That's kind of how they were rocking. And the men of the tribe would often go on weeks long fishing trips along the eastern seaboard. Yeah, they go pretty far north and pretty far south, it said. Um, which I guess makes sense. I feel like, isn't the eastern seaboard like the more calm one? Like you can't really even surf out there. I mean, you do got the hurricanes, but they definitely had that shit figured out. You know what I mean? And they were there for 12,000 years, like a constant culture, or like the same group. I don't know. It said they were there for 12,000 years, and I was like, that's probably bullshit. They're probably just like the Indians lived in peace and nothing ever changed hands. I don't know. Maybe it was like the same ethnic group was there for 12,000 years, but even then, that's highly doubtful, especially with the Iroquois figuring that shit out. And just, if the Europeans didn't arrive, they'd all be speaking Iroquois right now. You know what I mean? It's like, it's how they say, like, if America never did D-Day, we'd all be speaking German right now, dude. The Iroquois probably would have wiped the Wampanoag out, dude. Iroquois is just, the name Mohawk alone is just enough to destroy an entire tribe of people. Um, but yeah, where was I at? The tribe was ruled by a single sachem who had a number of sachems under him, and this sachem was often referred to as the king, like the head sachem, the sachem of all sachem, or sagamore. Uh, fucking chief, dude. Can we call a spade a spade? It's a chief. Um, but no, it wasn't really a chief at the same time. That kind of was a joke, kind of wasn't. Um, but like it was like decided by the female leaders of the clans of who was gonna. That's who decided who was gonna be sachem. Um, so it was kind of like a democracy type of thing, but only women could vote. Which I mean, that's either more of a democracy or less of a democracy, however you look at it. Not in like just based on how women operate, dude. Because it was either there was one bitch that bullied everyone else into voting for one guy, or they just like all in fought enough and like they actually voted for who they wanted to. You know what I mean? But the European colonists often referred to this head sachem as king. Um, which brings us into the King Philip's War, which happened from 1675 to 78, which happened between the Wampanoag alone, um, fought against English colonists and their tribal allies, who were encroaching on their land. And this led to 40% of the Wampanoag being sold into slavery. And this is 40% of the surviving Wampanoag after like they experienced like a ton of plagues. Or they called them plagues. I guess I don't really know what a plague is, but yeah, they got like wiped out by like smallpox and polio, and there was this whole last war, and yeah, still 40% of them were sold into slavery, down in the Caribbean. So yeah, there might be some dudes with New England. If you run into an Indian looking dude down in the Caribbean with a New England accent talking about clam chowder or whatever, it's a Wampanoag. But the Wampanoag were also converted to Christianity around this time by Puritans in praying towns, um, which were often massacred by the English and other tribes due to their pacifist beliefs. So this happened a lot during the Revolutionary War, um, and basically up until the government was like, okay, dude, we can't take them all out. You know what I mean? Let the boys chill. We'll give them like a casino near Buffalo, New York. Um, but yeah, they'd convert them, and then because the the Indians didn't want to like live the Indian lifestyle anymore because it didn't, adhere super well to their Christian beliefs. They live in these uh towns, and yeah, and they were pacifists, so they got taken out a lot. Like they did some fucked up shit, dude. They'd like put them all in a house and light it on fire because they wouldn't do anything, which that is kind of crazy, dude. I mean, I get it, you got your beliefs, but fight back. I mean, they're not. It's a bunch of frail English colonists. You know what I mean? Like these dudes barely survived the winter. Squanto came in, showed them how to grow beans, and they barely made it through. They were munching on each other just like 10 years ago. You can fight back, but yeah. In praying towns, this wasn't specific to the Wampanoag. There were a lot of Algonquian groups converted to Christianity during this time, specifically this brand of Christianity, and they uh, did it in this way where they lived in praying towns and stuff. But many Wampanoags still reside in their ancestral homeland, but populations were devastated by disease from the 16 to the 1800s. And they also got, like, when people talk about stolen land, a lot of the time you're like, yeah, but that's just how the world worked at that time. You're like, yeah, they stole their land. That's not great. You shouldn't do it, but like, that's how the world worked. The Wampanoag legitimately had a lot of their land, like, legally stolen. Like there is a legal case for the Wampanoag to reclaim certain lands, including Nantucket Island, um, where all like those rich Democrats live, or like Obama. The Obamas killed like 8 personal chefs that were secretly fucking Barack. They killed like 8 of those dudes there. That was originally a Wampanoag reservation. Um, and I think the last one died there in 1885. And they were probably the rich libs probably pulled up and were like, made them their slaves or something. And it's always been rich libs there, dude. I swear to God. Even probably the Wampanoags were rocking Harris 24 hats when they were up there. Um, but yeah, the boys only got 320 acres. And they were very recently given this 320 acres. So yeah, the boys kind of got wiped out. There's still a few left and people carrying on the culture. And the thing I read said like that a high school started a Wampanoag language class, which is pretty cool. But yeah, they got took the fuck out, and I was like, I can't end the podcast there. So we're talking about lacrosse. Uh, it was invented by the Iroquois around 1100 A.D. It was originally played using sticks, um, and the sticks may or may not have had nets. They might have just been like a stick and a deer hide ball. Um, games games could have hundreds or even thousands of players and span miles. It was basically smear the queer, and I was like, dude, I was imagining like the LeBron James of original Iroquois lacrosse. And like it's just so confusing. He's just spending the whole time screaming, "That's our ball! That's our ball! It's our ball, ain't it?" I just did. And I was like crying, laughing, thinking about Le Mohican or whatever, Le Mohawk, uh playing lacrosse and just screaming it's our ball the entire time. And then I was thinking more about Iroquois LeBron, and I was like, if you don't know, LeBron's kind of known for telling like these white lies or being like, "Man, I've been listening to the beat to the Beatles since they put out their first album in 1958 or whatever." And I was just imagining Lamohawk being like, "Man, I told the Sachem, I told Chief Massachusetts not to fuck with the white man way before they even realized what the plague was coming from." That's just how I imagine Lamohawk chilling in the day. But yeah, they were just running around beating the shit out of each other, which I mean, having a grand old time. It's as we just discussed with the praying towns, they could have been doing a lot worse, um, even during that time. But lacrosse was used as a social event between groups and between tribes, specifically Iroquois tribes. But I'm sure the Algonquins got in there. You know what I mean? Um, and it was viewed as a gift from God, and that it could even heal you. So I mean, look, anyone that knows about lacrosse knows that's not true. If there's a game that's like the opposite of healing you, and I mean I'm talking like football probably fucks you up physically worse, but I mean lacrosse just mentally destroys you, turns you into a snapback wearing uh date rapist. I was gonna try to think of something else to say, but like I said, my brain's still barely working at this point. This is 4 pages of notes, and we're only at 40 minutes. Goddamn. Um, but yeah, and there's like these crazy like creation stories around it. One of them is wild, dude. We got love, we got hate, we got betrayal, and we got even space. And I was like, dude, whatever like gay scientist from like Europe came over and was like, actually, that story isn't true. Fucking goddamn, what a nerd. That that's like the best way to go about shit. Like, no, dude. Oh, lacrosse was like, it's actually like a representation of democracy between two tribes. No, fuck that. All right. Some dude jumped through a rift in the multiverse, and that's how this shit was made. It's just science is so gay. Goddamn, dude. We only got 40 minutes left. I might sit on this episode because I'll probably have time to record it tomorrow or later today, but I probably won't, which is why I recorded it today, obviously. But I mean, we're only at 40 minutes. My brain's the holotropic breathing, dude. It only gave me about 5 extra minutes of brain power, but yeah, that's all I've got for this episode. Maybe I have been writing down a lot of my thoughts because I'm scared of this happening during an episode. But yeah, nothing really relates to this shit too much. But yeah, Thanksgiving. Hope you guys have a good one. If you eat ham at Thanksgiving, you're you're not a true patriot, all right? People are like turkey's worse. Yes, obviously ham is better than turkey, but it's not about what tastes better. It's about doing the right thing for your country, all right? Participating in our traditions. So, yeah, if you're not eating turkey, you're not a true patriot. If you have ham and turkey, I'll give it to you. You know what I mean? I'll give you the two meats, but I'll give you, speaking of two meat, I got 2 inches of meat. All right. Um, but yeah, goddamn. What else about Thanksgiving that's going on? I think this Thanksgiving, I'm coming straight out of the gate. You know what I mean? A lot of people like to tiptoe around the subjects. I'm coming straight out, dude. Do you think the Holocaust happened? I'm going straight for the full court shot. You know what I mean? Getting everything out in the open. Do you think it was 6 million really? That's I think the opening question for this Thanksgiving. Just because I need to come out. You know, swing for the fences, as they say. Um, but yeah, I guess I'll read out one of the thoughts I had, dude. So it's like I saw this on TikTok, and it was like a body language analysis, and the video I saw was like a joke, but like there are people that legitimately are like trying to learn how to like be alpha or like intimidate people or whatever, like in the business world. And it's like, dude, that doesn't work. Like if anyone that has seen The Social Network, that movie, knows it doesn't work. Because the Winklevosses were like these two like jacked fucking like, you know, rich, handsome, like 6'4" D1 athletes from Harvard. And then they just ran into this autistic buzzsaw that is fucking Mark Zuckerberg. Like they were like, Zuckerberg, you know nothing. And he just came in like, shut the fuck up. Yeah, dude. Like you're gonna do all this to just to get run it straight into the buzzsaw that is autism. You're gonna just get dominated by some dude who understands programming and who isn't afraid to call you a faggot. You know what I mean? Oh, that might have been the first one I dropped, but I doubt anyone, even the people who listen to this that I know are listening to this, have made it this far. But goddamn, dude, I think that's all I've got, dude. I might have to re-record this episode again tomorrow, which I mean, not the end of the world. You know what I mean? You might have to do it every once in a while, or I can just accept that the episode's not very good. I can do either or. But yeah, caffeine, I need to stop drinking it, dude. I'm not a caffeine guy. My body knows, dude. My body knows that my ancestors aren't meant to drink, or that my ancestors just didn't drink it. They know I'm a nicotine guy through and through. Which I mean, still not fucking 21. Which is, I mean, you want to talk about people talk about Trump taking our rights away. He hasn't done shit yet, but he did take that one away. It was Trump who decided that you got to be 21 to fucking buy tobacco. But yeah, that's all I've got for this episode, dude. Like I said, it's kind of a stinker, but it's just this month is so shit. It like kind of had to be a stinker, but yeah. All right. Have a good rest of your day, rest of your week, rest of your month, rest of your year. You know what I mean? We only got about a month left. Goddamn! I just turned into that meme of the dude, fucking that one. But yeah. All right. that's all I've got. Yeah. Have a good one. Hopefully I'll see you guys next Wednesday. All right. Peace out.